home, hit home really, really bad because being raised on the South Side of Chicago, you experience so much, but I've been able to have a very privileged life. I'm able to go to the vineyard every single year. I can go home and go in the fridge and get food and go sleep in a bed.
Sure.
The dynamic
Things
really
that we don't even think are a privilege, but that are.
don't even think about it. I was able to drive home and get home and just chill for like these small things where there are kids leaving the camp didn't know where they were going to sleep that night. So I think that idea haunted me, and I wanted to explore this mask of sadness. I really don't think sadness is the base. I mean, I don't think anger is the base level. I think sadness is what is really there. Anger is this mask that we have when we truly feel sad about something.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers. I'm your host, Harriette Cole. As always, honored to be with you today. And what we do here is bring people on to the show who are manifesting their dreams. And why do I do that? Because I want to inspire you to manifest your own. So many of you know my happy place is in Sag Harbor in the Hamptons, and that is where I am and have been for much of the summer. So one day I was on our beach and I was at the surprise birthday party of friends of ours. And I was introduced to a young man who is living his dreams as a filmmaker. And I learned a little bit about him, enough to be intrigued. He explained that he was going to, I think it was debut, or at least he's been on the film festival circuit, and he was showing his new short film at the Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival. I was not able to get there, but I did get to see his film. So let me tell you about who our guest is. He is Elijah Moss, known as Eli Moss in the business. He is a Chicago-born filmmaker whose lens captures both beauty and truth in equal measure. Now based in Los Angeles, Elijah blends visual poetry with socially rooted storytelling, creating films that challenge, move, and connect audiences. Eli's award-winning shorts include Otis's Dream and Losing Daphne, and his latest works continue to travel the world, from Sadness of Men, which screened at the Miami Black Film Festival and, as I just mentioned, the Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival, to Blue Note, a transcultural journey shot in Senegal that explores music and African diasporic identity. That film is set to premiere next year. Rooted in a family with a deep civil rights legacy, Elijah approaches each story with deep empathy and a commitment to amplifying voices across cultures. Whether behind the camera or in the editing room, he brings to life narratives that bridge continents, generations, and the shared human experience. Elijah Moss, welcome to Dreamleapers.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Of course, and congratulations on being on the film festival circuit. I know that had to be exciting. It was just last week that you were on the Vineyard. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, the festival journey has been amazing. We had this short that we carefully crafted, so many factors involved, but being able to be at these top Black film festivals and for people to connect with this story and have people relate to it so much, it's been nothing but amazing. But yeah, it's really, really cool.
So tell us a little bit, for those who haven't been to Martha's Vineyard, especially in August. I mean, it has become quite the place for Black culture.
Oh, yes.
It seems like everybody you can imagine is there. There are lots of creators there, business people. Can you give us a sense of what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, so when I first started coming to the Vineyard, it was early when I was about, I think, 11, 12 years old. And my father would take us, because he speaks at Union Chapel, Dr. Otis Moss III. And at first when I started coming here, I was super bored. I was like, I don't want to come here. This is where all the old folk go. I didn't know where anything was. Over time, as I started to get older and mature, I started to see, oh, this is the Black Mecca right here. This is a place where you see successful Black people in all aspects of life. I started playing basketball on the courts, and I got to meet friends that ended up becoming roommates, ended up going to school at Morehouse with me, and it just became a place where there's a community. There's a place where you get to see Black success, get to see people from all walks of life experience something that is so true, so genuine, and also very inspirational. This is an inspiring island. It's the amount of conversations I've had with different people who are in the world doing amazing things. It's been absolutely amazing.
Did you see that Ralph Lauren made a whole Martha's Vineyard Oak Bluffs?
I have it on. I have it on right now.
Isn't that exciting?
It's absolutely amazing. It is absolutely amazing. Morehouse, I love my institution to death. We'll die on that hill. Love Spelman. Love the AUC. Love Clark. It's just I think putting this on, having such a unique idea, but kind of putting in a connection where people can really understand and learn. I didn't know about the history of Oak Bluffs and Martha's Vineyard at all. So being able to see that story and why this collection was so important, this is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So for folks who don't know, Oak Bluffs is the part of Martha's Vineyard that has been traditionally African-American, where Black people would come to go to the beach, even when during segregation they couldn't go in other places. This was the meeting place, and it remains a meeting place on the island. Although at this point, the island is completely taken over in August by prominent Black people and businesses, etc. So the Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival has been going on for some years now and has become quite a pulse point on the film festival circuit. Tell us what your film is that you brought to the festival and a little bit about the storyline.
Yes, so the film is called Sadness of Men. It deals with a Black rancher becoming a father, but having to deal with his own past and his own past traumas with his father. So we have this setting where we have a Black character who has a good life, who has livestock, who's on his ranch operating, and everything's good with family. But when he finds out he's soon to be a father, it brings him into this spiraling where he's afraid to confront the generational violence that his family's endured, but he also wants to be a good father, but kind of running from it at the same time. So creating this dynamic where, when you're mentally not right and when you're dealing with different circumstances and you don't have a clear direction, we wanted to kind of show this new way of thinking and how talking about your experiences and being able to understand mental health issues and in a setting that's interesting, but also known to a lot of other people. So we that was the main goal for that. And we wanted to kind of have not so much of a traumatic thing, but we want to see why it's important to talk about it and how your life can be better once you start, getting to the issues at hand.
So there's so many questions I have about this. First, you have a Black rancher. That's not necessarily the image of Black men is not necessarily a rancher. What
Right.
made you think to place this story with a rancher at the center?
So I grew up watching a lot of cowboy films. My father loved Westerns and, the Magnificent Seven and so many others. But my mother was the one who told me, she comes from Virginia. And she's like, the first cowboys were Black cowboys. This is in the history. This is solidified. And I've always been interested in that. I love seeing new renditions like The Harder They Fall and different other films. But originally, I wanted this film to be in a slaughterhouse. I wanted it to be about a Black family that owned a slaughterhouse business, very prominent, and how the central character was about to take over the business, but couldn't because his father thought he was too weak. He didn't like killing animals. He didn't believe in it. But this was the family business. So I wanted that realm. Obviously, it's too hard to do. There's all sort of violations, and the industry is very protective about shoot certain things. So I said, well, okay, what if I did a backdrop where there's a ranch and there's a guy who is maintaining something that you usually don't see. This is not something you see every day, and who's calm, cool, and collected, who can get through and raise cattle and be able to tend to horses and train them. And I thought that would be an interesting dynamic, especially with horses, because I wanted to use that symbol as something prominent in the film.
And as a younger person, did you grow up around horses? Do you have comfort around horses?
I did not. My line brother, when we were at Morehouse College, he had a horse that he would train every weekend, and we would drive out to like the far part of Georgia, outside of Atlanta, and I would just watch him try to train his horse, get thrown off of it, you know. But he was like, I have to solidify this bond with this horse. I needed to know, like, I'm here for him, that I love this horse, and it's kind of like a mutual thing. It's almost like Avatar when you connect to the animals. You know, you have to one. So that was kind of the.
And did you end up riding at all?
I did. I tried a few times. You know, I need to get better. I tried for sure.
But I like that you are tackling, you know, tough issues about life and generational experiences, both previous trauma and what the future might be. You call it, what's the title of your film?
Sadness of Men.
Right, Sadness of Men. How did you come to that title?
So I was in the library. I'm currently at Loyola Marymount University, finishing up my master's. One more year left. And so, thank you. There is what they teach in the curriculum sometimes is if you lack inspiration, go to the library, get some books or get some photo books of photography. How can you tell a story without words? How could the images tell a story? So found this book entitled Sadness of Men by Philip Perkins. And what he does is he takes figures and objects in a frame that shouldn't belong there, but it's in the backdrop of something. So it'll be a dog in this like kind of crazy fence-like structure. It'll be people going to work who, you see their emotions on their faces. He always knows how to guide your eye to a certain point. And in this book, I became fascinated with these images. And
so the book is a picture book?
It's a picture book, photography. It's a collection of
got it.
That he took. And I was really captivated by the title Sadness of Men, because the sole inspiration for this film came out of a program that I was a part of in Chicago. So I used to work in Roseland over COVID, dealing with youth and underprivileged communities, trying to
tell us what Roseland is called.
Roseland. So it's a neighborhood in Chicago called Roseland. I worked for this program called Roseland Christian Ministries that does a lot of community work. And the Pastor Joe, which is absolutely incredible. The mission, they have a women's shelter at the church. They really pour back in the community and give children in the community a place to be safe, a place to experience new things. And the program that I worked in, that was the goal, to have a free program for kids to go and have food and learn about God and learn about different types of jobs, not just, the ones they see every day, but, taking them to museums, taking them to, a karate studio, taking them different places so they can have an experience to say they've done something, to kind of guide them in a certain light. And while I was in this program, I became close to this 11-year-old named Dante. And he was so angry all the time. We were over here. He was on, unfortunately, he was on house arrest while we were in the program. And
at 11
years old. The camp was from, I think, 4 to 13 years old, right before you.
And they were all troubled youth?
Yeah, trouble, or just comes from communities, really impoverished communities. Like they just need.
Not necessarily trouble, just from impoverished communities.
Yeah, just really needed resources. And for the most part, there were a few. Dante was always getting into it, always so angry, and he I guess we found out later on that he was on house arrest because his father took him on an armed robbery, and he didn't, he didn't see anything wrong with it, right? He was like, this is my father. This is like the person who this is the father figure in my life, right? And, didn't know too much about the mother, but while he was at this camp, he was just always angry, always fighting, always getting so mad. And so on the second to last day, he broke down crying, and he said, I go to this camp every day. He said, you all literally drag me here. He said, I don't want to come here. It's like, I'd rather be outside, down the street, just get in trouble. And he broke down and said, like, people never told me like this was wrong. And so it kind of, that moment kind of, it hit me home, hit home really, really bad,
Sure.
because being raised on the south side of Chicago, you experience so much. But I've been able to have a very privileged life. I'm able to go to the vineyard every single year. I can go home and go in the fridge and get food and go sleep in a bed.
Sure.
The dynamic
Things
really
that we don't even think are a privilege, but that are.
don't even think about it. I was able to drive home and get home and just chill for like these small things where there were kids leaving the camp, didn't know where they were going to sleep that night. So I think that idea haunted me, and I wanted to explore this mask of sadness. I really don't think sadness is the base. I mean, I don't think anger is the base level. I think sadness is what is really there. Anger is this mask that we have when we truly feel sad about something.
Wow. Hey guys, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. I'm here talking to filmmaker Elijah Moss. Right now, we're talking about his short film that he just debuted at the Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival called Sadness of Men. I love the title because it's really provocative, and knowing where it came from, I love that you got inspiration at a moment when maybe it was like writer's block. You didn't know what to do next. That is so important. I hope everybody who's tuned in is hearing this. We're talking to a filmmaker who wasn't sure what to do next. Where am I going next? And instead of staying stuck, he went to the library. We never have to stay stuck. And I think that's a very important point to share with everyone who is tuned in, because you might be right now, who knows what you're going through, who knows what you're trying to create, what you're trying to do for your life. And we all get stuck at some point. But I love that you didn't stay stuck. You said, let me follow a lesson that you had learned and look at where it brought you. Especially today, when we see so many Black men in peril. We too often we hear stories of Black fathers not being there for their children, and there are tons of reasons for this that include institutional racism.
Right.
But you in this film, you're taking a very tender approach to a man who, when he finds out that he's going to have a kid, is assessing how am I going to live? How can I do this? How can I accept this responsibility? As you have done your research and just learned about the plight of many Black men in this regard, what are some of the lessons that you have learned that you are pouring into your work?
I think, a lot of times I love films that kind of deal with the landscape of mental health issues, but toxic masculinity, at the forefront. I think a lot of times we live in a society where there has been a conditioning where there's been a certain way of living and a certain way of life. And I think, especially, they always say women are definitely smarter than men, 100%. As far as emotional smartness and intelligence, as far as like how we do that, we compete with each other so much, and we have such high egos. And I think being able to kind of assess that and say, okay, well, if you lead with love, or if you lead with honesty, if you lead with truth, we always want to bury things and say, oh, this is the manly thing to do. This is what we're supposed to do. And while society has conditioned that, we have to start taking an approach where we actually are able to be comfortable in our truths, and be able to talk about why this upset us or why this is troubling us. And, even it's maybe out of embarrassment, it may be out of guilt, it may be in different forms. We have to be able to take this first leap and say, well, the more I bury this, the more it's just, you're essentially building this cemetery in your system where it's just haunting you, and I think being able to openly talk and discuss with people, I mean, and it just goes way back to, being able to have a group of people who are comforting and loving, and not judgmental. I think the whole judging aspect of, my father being a pastor in Southside Chicago, we welcome all. You welcome all, the church could also be a pretty judgmental place, that
Yes.
you come inside there, a few times I know my dad was telling me, there's a young man who came and smelled like weed in the church, and people were super mad. And it's like they weren't asking the right questions. They should have been asking why he was here. There's a
Mhm.
reason why he came to church. He could have been anywhere else,
That's
but he
right.
came to church, right? And I think we have to start being, just more kind. We need to be loving. And I think when facing this film, um, I like stories that provide uncomfortability. I don't want things to be kind of smeared over in a way that's like, okay, happy ending, or okay, this is just what it is. I need people to really understand and be able to think, about the story. Maybe this was a story that related to someone else, in their experiences.
Sure.
We all suffer from different type traumas. We all suffer from our own, problems. But at the end of it and at the root of it, how are we able to be better humans to one another? It's a domino effect. You change one life, you can change another, and you change another. And when, and especially in fatherhood, you teach your children, it's okay to talk about your feelings. You don't have to be upset. I really just wanted to kind of have that, because my father just super kind, my mother super kind, poured and said love is the way. My grandfather said love is the way, and that's
Right.
kind of the core theme I wanted to present. It is okay to go through things, but it's also okay to be open about it and to talk about it and to move past it in a way that's more loving.
So I read that, and I think this may be about the program that got
Mhm.
you started in the first place, but you're doing a lot of work with young people
Yeah.
in the space of mental health,
Yep.
which is a big topic right now. People are talking about it more now than ever,
Mhm.
including men talking about mental health, which is a big step because
Right.
often you had to be so tough that you couldn't talk
Right.
about things like that.
Right.
Uh, is this ongoing work for you?
It is. It is. See, we were talking about Martha's Vineyard and the connectivity and who you talk to. There was a gentleman, Mr. Jameson, who approached me while we were at the festival. And he said, I really enjoyed your film. Dealing with mental health, this is huge. He is on the team for BAM, which is Becoming a Man. They have different chapters around all over the country. And what they are is a youth mentorship program for young men. And they have significantly reduced crime in certain areas. They've been able to say they have graduates going to do great things, becoming lawyers, doctors, because they have a community of men who are coming back to inspire people, and they're able to see a new light. And so I was approached and said, we want to build a curriculum out this movie. And so in the fall and next year, we're starting a plan where we're going to screen this film and have different, healthcare providers and different people come in, psychologists, to talk to these young men and say, whatever you're going through, you are not what you are going through. You are
That's
not
beautiful.
this. So that's, just trying to implement truth and identity and knowledge and wisdom, so that not only they can change their lives, but they will pass that down to their generations.
That's powerful. You've told us that you're a Morehouse man, and you pledged. What's your fraternity?
Alpha Phi Alpha.
My father was an Alpha. I'm Delta.
Yeah.
The Divine Nine, which thanks to Kamala
Mhm.
Harris, we have come together even more. When everybody used to be so competitive, I'm like, look, y'all, we can be together, and it's even
Right.
more powerful.
100%.
But I wanted to say what I've learned about Morehouse.
Mhm.
There's what's called the Morehouse man,
Yeah.
and I know that part of the initial curriculum, every young man who goes to Morehouse has to go through basically an etiquette training.
Right.
Really how to understand how to be a man, how to carry yourself with grace and respect, how to treat other people, how to
Right.
move through spaces, really empowered and respectful at the same time.
Mhm.
Uh, Obviously, that's part of your training, but I'd like to talk about that for a moment because I think it's such an important program that I have a lot of respect for.
Right.
Uh, what does it mean that you are a Morehouse man and what you learned there?
Right. I've known about Morehouse since I was born. My father went to Morehouse. My grandfather went to Morehouse. My uncles went
Okay,
to Morehouse.
legacy.
Legacy. This is a place that I always saw as home. And
Mhm.
even in high school, we had a college curriculum where you had to apply to multiple colleges. And I told the school they were a little mad. I was like, I'm going to one place. I'm not applying anywhere else. They're like, how do you know you're going to get in? I'm like, I love Morehouse to death. This is my school. This is my institution. Like, this is the only place I ever see myself. And the first day of Morehouse, we have this thing every week called Crown Forum, where you is basically like an assembly that you have to go to. And you learn about different things. You learn about yourself. You learn about what it means to be a Morehouse man and to go to this great institution. And the people who've gone to Morehouse, and they do this thing where they say, look to your left and your right. You say, you better remember these faces because you better be the ones that make sure y'all graduate together. And they do tell us, and like, not everybody's going to graduate, but you need to make sure you graduate and the people next to you graduate. And so it's kind of like this thing they do where Morehouse from the jump tells you that you are the greatest being on this planet. It's like a lot of people say, Morehouse men are very arrogant, but they instill in us a sense of you go into the world and you are to do great things. There is no in between. There is no below. You need to go off and do great things. It's amazing to say we had Dr. King who attended the institution, Howard Thurman, all these different and great individuals who were able to set a standard for us, but also, uplift this important. Morehouse is so historical. It's so important. I mean, even from the professors to the experiences, you're trained in a capacity that allows you to know your worth and to know that you are not only a person of God, but a person who's supposed to spread love into the world. You're supposed to go into your field and change things. You're supposed to not be too comfortable. You're supposed to go out and provide, a foundation for other Black men and other people of, the world to embrace. And so I think going to this amazing institution that I will forever, my heart is to. This is Mother Morehouse. This is a place where my best experiences come from, the best lessons I've learned from, even going over and taking classes at Spelman and being able to do cross classes with great professors over there who instill in us a sense of this is where you're supposed to. Even taking classes at Clark where they're teaching, great communication and great films. A lot of this understanding. There's this uniqueness to the AUC. There's this uniqueness to being at HBCU. But yeah, Morehouse is my heart, and I credit Morehouse for many, 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 many things.
I love hearing those stories, and I mean, look, every experience that we have in life we can grow from, but going to an HBCU, HBCU like Morehouse certainly gives you an incredible foundation. But I also want to add the family foundation. So I want you to talk about your family, but I'll enter this by talking about the first film that you made, which is Otis's Dream.
Yep.
And this is a short film.
Yeah.
I believe you said it's about your great grandfather. Can you tell us who Otis was and what the content of that film is about? Right.
So my grandfather is Dr. Otis Moss Jr. His father was Otis Moss, the original Otis Moss, and he was someone who was loving, who prioritized family and God and faith. And this is a story that has essentially been passed down from generations ever since the event. Our grandfather would sit us down, all the cousins, all the kids, aunts, nephews, and tell a story about his father and why voting registration and voting rights is so essential. A lot of his work in the civil rights movement came from voters' rights. But the story that he passed down is that his father was able to vote, and woke up super early one day to super proud that he was able to cast a vote to get a person out of Georgia who was doing horrible things, who was just segregating and not providing love and community. And he woke up and walked some 18 miles. He walked to 3 different polling places and was denied from all 3 of them. And imagine walking all this way and then having to come back defeated. And he always told us that, you never skip out on voting ever. It is really a sin in our family, that this is a necessity, that this is the start. And because of that experience, it grounded my grandfather in a way where he wanted to go into civil rights and he wanted to make a change in the life of others. And so my father said, I want to make this film. I need this. We've had interviews, Miss Oprah Winfrey has talked about it in her show and said that she
About
cast.
your film?
Yep. About my
But
great
you
great
great
grandfather.
grandfather.
She cast her vote in the name of Otis Moss.
Cool.
And I think we really wanted to create a place where we were doing it around election time. We really wanted to kind of be conscious about that also and get more people to vote. But my father
Which
said
election?
this was when this was what is this 2020, so we were gearing up for 2000, and I believe the next one where Kamala was going to
Okay, where she was running. Okay.
Yes, and um he said, I have this idea, we need to kind of it might have been Biden. Actually, I believe it was Biden that they were gearing up for. But just we were just really trying to get hate out of life, get that crazy man out. But my father came to me and said, I have this idea. And he said, I don't know how to, film is your thing. And, I need a little help with that. So we started brainstorming and writing some things down, and we ended up hiring this directing duo, Jason Blue, who did a phenomenal job. Keith Walker was doing cinematography, and we wanted to draft a story that had narration, but our family talks about, the importance of voting, but also bridge it and end it with our grandfather and my father's father, who is the head of the family. He is the person that we all look to, we all call for advice, who we have a deep love for, and seeing that his fight, how it's continued on through years and years to come. So he's instilled in our family a sense of this identity where social justice is forefront.
Absolutely. Hey guys, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. We're talking to Elijah Moss. He is a filmmaker. He's made several films. We met him because he's bringing his film about, it's called Sadness of Men, that is now on the film festival circuit. And we're just talking about his first film, Otis's Dream, that is a family story. So Elijah, you come from a family that is known. Many of the people who are part of your family are part of the fabric of American history, African American history. Tell us about your family and what family means to you.
Right. So I come from the Moss clan, the Moss family. We started in LaGrange, Georgia. And again, my grandfather became a prominent civil rights activist, doing work with a Southern Leadership Conference in Cleveland. He, upon graduation from Morehouse, did a lot of work with Daddy King, Dr. King's father at Ebenezer. And, kind of he, from the jump, said, I'm going to dedicate my life to service. That is what it's about. I'm going to go into ministry. That's where he thought that, this is the best means to do the work and social justice work. And so growing up, hearing all these stories, being able to be connected to these great icons and activists, and saying that like their family, it's unbelievable. And having these shared experiences where my grandfather saying family is the most important thing in the world and community is the most important thing in the world, but hearing the behind the scenes struggles with civil rights and, this sort of firm footing that, they had to choose sides. When you're dealing with such strong issues, there are different methods to it, right? You have, if you look through history, you can go from Du Bois or to Booker T. Washington, Marcus Garvey, all with the same goal, different methodologies. And so for them to put their foot down and saying, my grandfather said, we are going to be nonviolent. This is the fight that we believe in. A lot of people are not going to believe in it. You're going to think it's not necessary, but that was the footing that he stood on and the discipline that he said, I am choosing to stand in the nonviolent movement where we are just going to boycott, demand, change, but we're not going to do it. We're going to do it in a way that uplifts love, uplifts what Christ has taught us. My grandfather was taught by the great Howard Thurman, who his book is just absolutely made Jesus and the Disinherited, who talks about disinherited people and how you have to lead with love. You have to love your enemies. You have to be at peace. And I think, again, going back to Morehouse, this way of teaching was taught to this generation, and I think um, they really wanted to uphold it, and so that is how that started, and just being able to hear the struggles and all the different
So
stories.
your father and grandfather are ministers, is that correct?
Yes. Yep,
How
yep.
did that come to be? Was it because one of them knew Dr. King, right? March with Dr. King.
Yep,
Who was
yep.
that?
That was my grandfather.
Your grandfather. And so was he inspired by Dr. King to become a minister?
He was inspired by Benjamin Elijah Mays, who was the
Okay.
president of Morehouse College. This was
Okay.
his mentor and someone who changed the landscape of Morehouse forever by introducing politics and introducing philosophy and religion, and saying that this is the forefront of how we're going to create men. We're going to allow them to come to college early on, and we're going to teach them these different ways to approach love and to be great human beings in the world. And again, Howard Thurman and all these other different classmates he had and professors. He felt a calling to ministry, having been raised in the church also. And the same thing from my father. My father played football in high school. He originally wanted to go to film school. That was like, he loved films. And he ran track. He holds a record at Morehouse. He really loved track. That was his thing. And he told a story that he was trying to qualify for the Olympics. He had this big qualifying day, and he caught the chicken pox a few days before, and he was just completely devastated. And he said he had a long talk with God, and he felt a calling to ministry after that. He said, I feel like this was like some intervention somehow, and saying that you need to go and inspire people and be a proponent of change.
And so do you consider film your ministry?
Yes, 100%. 100%. I think film, literature, one of the greatest mediums that we've ever seen. There, you're able to not only inspire folk, but you're able to connect with people who live on the other side of the world. You're able to have shared experiences for people to see, and you don't have to be in the same room with one another. I think this is a way for communities to connect, for people to be inspired, for artwork to flow. My father always says, creative people might be the ones who really save the world, with all we do and how we live off of each other, essentially. Everything we do is based on, there's really no original concept. It comes from years of talking to it through stories, shared stories, through cultural exchanges, and having films. There are films that have literally knocked me off my socks that I've seen from different languages, and that's where you have this common understanding of being able to spread community. That is that's the most important thing right now.
So you went to Africa to make a film. Tell us, how did that happen, and where is the film located?
So we filmed in the Gambia and Senegal. We were gifted this grant from the Lilly Foundation, and my father said, we're going to really try to create a film and have these different companies.
And the we is you and your father?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So he has a media production company called Unashamed Medias that we were able to do a lot of. It started off sermonic films at first, and then we had more production companies, more financiers, more backers who were really interested at higher levels, who said, okay, this is a commitment. We like this. And so we'd been planning for a long time to get this kind of film going. And in this film, we're connecting the music sound between Mississippi, Senegal, and Chicago blues, and saying that the original sound, why the African diaspora and Black folk are so powerful, is because despite slavery, despite everything that's happened to us, there's been a cultural exchange where there's been a sound that has remained consistent, right? There's this instrument called the kora in Senegal that it's a guitar, essentially. It's very similar to a guitar. It's played very differently, but that instrument dates back years. And coming over from the Mississippi, there's this place called Sharkey Plantation and Dockery Plantation in Mississippi, and there's evidence that says that these folk brought this sound over that became the blues.
Wow.
and you have all these great blues artists, and then go up to Chicago, and being from Chicago, you hear about these great artists who came from Mississippi and had their way. So
I love this story though, because
yeah.
what's new about it to me,
Mm-hmm.
although it makes perfect sense, is that the sound may have predated
Mm-hmm.
the United States and Black
Yeah.
community here, and be echoing from our African roots. It
Right.
makes perfect sense. A lot of people talk about the blues and jazz as America's music, but
Mm-hmm.
you're suggesting, yes, and
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, you look at even jazz. Jazz is a combination of Latin American music and African presence, and New Orleans, and different places all across the world came together to combine this one sound. So being able to be honest about it and say, like, you can't take credit for everything. This is not our sound. This is a sound that comes from the world, and that's what we really are trying to investigate and show in this film.
And we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to hear a little bit more about the we being you and your father being in production together. Often when you get to your stage in life where it's really take flight, you ready to go and do your thing. The fact that you are doing your thing, but you are doing it, at least in part, in partnership with your father, I think is very special. What is it like working with your dad, you as a young adult, working with someone who, I mean, he's a minister. I know he's got a very strong, powerful personality.
Mm-hmm.
What is that dynamic like?
My father is my hero, 100%. I look to him for everything. He is someone who takes, leaps of faith, who believes in people, and being able to work alongside him has been absolutely amazing, because this is a person who taught me how to play basketball and coached me in that, and taught me different areas of when I first got to Morehouse, I didn't know what I wanted to study. I was like history or English or ministry, I didn't know, but I always had this love for film, and seeing the way our dynamic. He loves film. My dad and I are nerds at heart. We're comic book lovers. We always are able to talk about movies and superheroes, and so it's like this is something we've been doing since I was a kid. Being able to sit down and talk about our lives and how to express ourselves. But we really float ideas to each other. He has an amazing pen. He's able to write, and I think being able to write and learn from him and his craft and all his favorite writers, it's inspiring. But it's it's not as difficult as people might seem. It's really it's really foundational. It's very attentive, and again, when you're working with so many people, you have to be able to respect everyone's opinions, and be able to hear people out. And I think over time we just had this collaborative effort to bounce stories off of each other, and really kind of just be like, oh, I like that, let me use that, or you like this, let me have this. And so he's been uplifting. He's been nothing but encouraging for this path that I'm diving down.
So I love hearing that, and I know quite a bit about the industry, television and film. It's in a pretty precarious position right now. I know many people who are in the industry but are finding it difficult to survive, to find work. And in the midst of that, I see a tremendous hope in you, and focus, and you seem like you have a plan that you are fulfilling. As you look at the industry and see what's going on, how are you navigating and keeping your spirits up and keeping your focus on the projects that you want to create?
I think it's really just being grounded in your faith in God. When what, at the end of the day, humans know what's right and what's wrong. We tend to ignore it due to different situations, and then our own, personalities. But I think I was taught early on, when you use God as your light, you listen to God. You listen to what that little voice inside you says. Do not do that. Do this. This is the right thing to do. The industry is in an interesting place. I've always been an indie film lover. I've always been a lover of people who have made films through crazy means, through means that don't rely on huge box office, who actually pay writers, who actually want to be together with many people and learn from many people. And I mean, how does inspiration flow if everything just so tight knit and you don't have, a proper base standing on? And so I think I want to tell stories that really challenge the human experience, to really give perspective to different stories and different types of people. And growing up with my father, who was a storyteller, he's a pastor. Hearing
Right.
these stories in the Bible, with people like Job, who go through undeniable circumstances, testing his faith, and
Right.
people like Mary and people like Joseph, and different aspects in this story where every single Sunday you sit down and you learn how these people have navigated in the Bible through, understanding themselves, actually gaining human experience, but also, being in tune with their faith and being challenged by God. Life is not supposed to be comfortable. You're supposed to have your fun times. You're supposed to, have your good times. But I think, you know, um, this is life is about service. It's about being of service to other people and also enjoying each other's company and providing, celebration, providing love and laughter and humility. And I think that is you have to be grounded. You do have to be grounded, and I think we need to teach that to young filmmakers and people, moving forward.
That's beautiful. Hey guys, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. Believe it or not, we are almost finished this interview. I mean, it's hard to believe how fast it has gone. We are talking with Elijah Wood, filmmaker. He's telling us about his career and his family and his dreams. So, Elijah, I want to talk a little bit about faith because you talk very openly about it.
Yep.
Uh, when you are with your friends, when
Mhm.
you all are sitting around talking about the challenges that you face in life,
Mhm.
how does faith come up in the conversation? Does it? Do you talk openly about faith and how to apply the lessons that you learned through faith in living your lives?
What's interesting? So being from Chicago, I have my friends and I. We're crazy. We're always getting in trouble. The thing about pastor kids, yeah, it's probably true, 100%. But
Oh, tell us, what does that mean for those who don't know?
they say we're bad. We're bad. We just chaotic. We just, we're trying. People have put on us, this thing. You have to be good, 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 and I think we just kind of run from it all the time. But most of my faith conversations with my friends have never been. They've been arguments, 100%. People come from all walks of life. I have friends who are atheists. I have friends who have their own relationship with God, who are more spiritual, different. So it's interesting hearing people's opinions on different things, and the conservative approach to religion and all this. I come from a family and a father and a grandfather who preach unconditional love, but also that there are no religions that you cannot say a religion is wrong. Obviously, unless it's like we're going to kill somebody in the name of this, stuff like that. But I'm saying, how am I to say someone else's religion is incorrect when they're trying to understand the landscape of life in God? And so we, taking early trips to Ethiopia early on and seeing, the first Christianity Bible comes from Ethiopia, and being able to go and speak to people in the faith of different things like Buddhism, and going to Morehouse and seeing people who have different ideas and beliefs. I have obviously my relationship with God. I read a lot every morning. I do a meditation with Howard Thurman's, Disciplines of the Spirit, Jesus and Disinherited, because that's kind of my comfort. That's the way I'm just being able to read the Bible the way the Bible is hard to read. Being able to read it in a way where people can analyze it and kind of say, okay, this is how you move forward. Hearing great preachers like Dr. Howard John Wesley and Marcus Cosby and people over time who are able to dissect in a way. I love philosophy. I love conspiracy theories. I love all this. So it's kind of like music to my ears when I get to hear stories, because I'm a filmmaker at heart. You love hearing how people are approaching different types of stories, which are different. So with my friends, we all grew up in a church. We all grew up. My best friend, I met him in children's church. We were sharing a graham cracker. That was my best friend for life. I think we all go through our own things of life, but at the forefront, we are people of faith. We believe. We pray. We before meals we pray. We really are in tune. We pray for each other, and Yeah, really, really, really face centered.
That's beautiful. Well, what's next on the horizon for you?
We have a film we're doing in November, dealing with Medicaid cuts,
Ooh,
dealing with underground gambling and moral conviction, and being able to say what is right, what's wrong, but also when survival is at right in your face, and you have nowhere else to go. What does good and bad mean? What means are you going to go to make sure your loved ones are protected? And so that's obviously political, but we like just having people ask the right type of questions and stories to just gauge perspective.
great. Well, it's been so lovely to talk to you, and I can't wait to hear about all the things that are coming because you are at the beginning of
Yes.
what is already a really powerful career. How can people see your films?
Yes. So, usually all my posts come from Eli.moss on Instagram. Once this film is done in the festival circuit, it will be released on Vimeo and YouTube and our platforms. But if you go to my Vimeo or YouTube, you'll be able to see other films. Also, website Eli.moss or Eli-Moss for the website, and you'll see links to these footage and films there.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, and we look forward to seeing all that's to come.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cole. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Go check out Elijah Moss's work. You can find him on YouTube and Vimeo and Instagram. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.